Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to my last session for the Forefront W3CR residency. So very happy with this journey that of creating life and working on a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. So want to give a huge shout out to the Forefront family for being super supportive about this creative journey. So since today is going to be our last section, it's going to be a summary of what we've achieved in the past few weeks, actually 4 weeks, and what's beyond for the Agartha project. So just to recap, the Agartha project started off as an ambition to build eco-village and promote the idea of solar punk lifestyles. And it has evolved into kind of like breaking this big ambition into small incremental steps on what are some of the things that we can do to actually progress us to this goal of building eco-villages. And thinking about my professional background and the things that I'm better at than, or like the things that I have more experience in, I decided to combine this idea with my background in game development and create an eco-village mini game. And so during the Forefront, I spent a lot of time making like assets and making art concept and also making a simple interaction for the game. I finally finished compiling everything, like literally a minute before the stream. So hopefully we have enough content to show everyone here. But beyond this residency, an Agartha project will continue to live on and continue to evolve. And another aspect of the residency beyond the aspect of creating digital art and games is that we want to launch Agartha as a DAO, where as a really great way to create a Schelling point to get people with similar vision to come together and work on one thing together. And by creating the style, what we're doing is that we're kind of like just making a voice for ourselves in the Web3 space, and also like creating like a set of principles and values that we follow and allow people to join and then exercise their talent within this creative collective. So in the end, Agartha is more than just a game. It's really a creative collective that allows people to come together and participate and work on projects together, and also launched as a DAO because I believe that within the Web3 space and within using using or taking advantage of blockchain technology, you can really allow people to communicate and also distribute assets in a more permissionless, transparent way. So today we're gonna just talk a bit about like what this project is, what have we achieved, and also what's beyond after that. So I'm very happy to share with you about the pitch deck, as you would call it, or I can call it a style guide or project summary that I've created. Let me figure out an efficient way to share my screen. Actually, okay. So this is the Agartha deck. Ooh. And let me see if I can, okay, so you all can see my screen. So Agartha is a creative technology style to build solar punk societies. So it's a creative collective. It's a group of artists coming together, working on fun stuff with the theme and the goal of solar punk societies. Of course, creativity goes beyond just the artist community. It can also include creativity in technological innovation, and creativity in research, and all these other aspects. But our vision is to build solar punk societies, and that include eco-villages, other eco-living solutions, eco-products, and everything that kind of allows our society to live in a more regenerative and eco-friendly way. And why now? So going back a bit before we launched this project, I want to talk about what are some of the things that kind of promoted us to want to launch this project. So these are the few things that we've observed about our current society, or you call it like society A, game A, where there are all these kind of like systems and designs that are not designed to be long lasting. Like, for example, the way we treat our natural resources, the way we generate energy, the way we like I guess like the way the whole system is designed, a lot of times it doesn't seem super long lasting. There's all these crises that we're in societal way, in environmental way, and also in an emotional way. So these are the crises that we kind of have listed as through during a lot of group discussions in the Agartha community, where we summarize them as the 3E crisis. So existential crisis, which means that with ongoing like emission and chemical pollution, many areas are experiencing unprecedented desertification and losing biodiversity. So that's related to the environment, but also related to how we live as a species. And we've inhabited a beautiful planet, but are increasingly making it uninhabitable with unaccounted externalities from over-industrialization. And then that goes, into the environmental crisis and and then into the ecological crisis. Actually, I think two of the existential and environmental crisis here is like reversed, but I'm gonna read it anyway. Lifestyles at most city centers are increasingly corporate-oriented, stress-infused, isolated, and unsustainable. Rates of homelessness, suicide, and drug addiction skyrocket. We're in the midst of a meaning crisis. I think a lot of people would resonate with that, living in city centers and then like just observing a lot of things that you see as wrong, like why is real estate so expensive? And also like why are people living such a stressful life? Why are we being squeezed out by these our free time has been squeezed out by these corporate jobs, and then once we don't have them, we kind of like, it's really hard for us to find like our point of existence within all these kind of societal frameworks. So we're going to get into how, like, what are some of the things that we can do to address these crises later on. And then the third crisis is economical crisis. Without like further ado, inflation rate is at all-time high, and it will just keep going higher. And affordability is becoming less and less. So in the U.S., federal minimum wage workers can afford the average rent in any major city. And so these are the crises that we've observed and then wanted to address in the very early stages of creating Agartha. And that's why we started looking into eco-villages and eco-living. And we found out, hey, there's actually a lot of people that have realized these crises and these issues, and they've decided to migrate to eco-villages. So there's all these like really amazing eco-villages around the US and the world. There's Dancing Rabbit, there's East Wind, there's Llama, there's all these amazing eco-villages, some smaller, some bigger, and then they've recognized these issues. They know they've had these really stressful and also existential lifestyles where it promoted them to not want to be participating in like these kind of like stressful urban environments and want to live more in harmony with nature and recycle and reuse and like be respectful to nature and land and be respectful to themselves and live in community, live in an eco-friendly environment, and also live in a more economical, sound environment where you don't have to be constantly worried about money or rent and things like that. So that's the original, I guess, motivation for us to really want to pursue creating an eco-village where we thought about it. We started looking into these issues and started looking into the solutions, and we realized, hold on a second, like if we just all start to create eco-villages, maybe that can be a really helpful thing for the world, right? So but then like Agartha really started just as a bunch of people talking about and researching about ideas, and then we don't have a lot of money, and we also don't really have land or anything like that. So we started thinking about, okay, how are we gonna actually get from point A to point B? How are we gonna get to the point where we have enough resources to actually build eco-villages and prototype? And also, is it just enough for us to build one eco-village? How is that gonna address all these multi-layered societal problem with just one single eco-village, because eco-village has existed a long time ago. So we really started thinking about, first, what's the way to get to what we want? And second, is this end goal actually addressing these problems that we observe that we're not okay with? So in the end, we decided to launch Agartha as more of a multi-dimensional approach. So the mission has progressed through just building a single physical eco-village to create a regenerative culture with practical solutions. So regenerative culture could mean many things. It could mean like solar punk kind of lifestyles, right? You don't necessarily need to be in an eco-village to live in a regenerative way. As we progress through our research, we realized that a lot of people living in city centers, they also grow their own food, they change their power to solar power, they bike more than they drive, they use public transportation when they can, they compost at home, and there's all these things that we can do to as a collective to really like help address these issues, at least like incrementally, in tiny steps. But what we can do, at least as artists and as creators, is that we can bring these solutions that exist and then turn them into like kind of braid them into a regenerative culture, and then with these things as our topic, and then we address them, and then we can we can make educational games about these solutions, we can make t-shirts and art about these solutions, we can make documentaries, movies, but there's all these different multi-dimensional or multimedia approach that we can do to address this issue before we even get to the point of building a physical eco-village. So this is why Agartha right now has been positioned into a creative collective. And regenerative culture includes solar punk lifestyles, permaculture principles, building eco-villages, DIY homestead, and the celebrating also mindfulness, also cultural diversity. So like aside from environmental friendly initiatives, we also want to celebrate, like things that's more in the alternative culture, environmental science, herbal medicine, and indigenous culture, and mindfulness practice, and all this good stuff that help us rejuvenate ourselves. And also once we rejuvenate ourselves, we can rejuvenate the planet. And with practical solutions, we don't really want these to just live on pen and paper. We really want to bring them into reality. That includes making strategy games about these concepts, making research and education material, building the actual physical village, creating art, articles and media, and all that stuff. And in the end, we summarize our approach as using a rational approach to design and technology innovation, and intuitive approach to art, culture, and community curation. So if you've seen the earlier sessions that I did, I really came to realize that rational approach and intuitive approach, like the scientific rational approach and the intuitive artistic approach, could be merged into like one holistic approach into how we create and how we handle problems and how we address these issues and create things for the better. And so this is, and I'm gonna go to the next one. So these are just some like poster-ish concept that we've been making: regenerative nature, regenerate our minds, and regeneration is gonna be the ethos at the core value for this project. And culture is gonna be a selling point. So once we create all these amazing things in the future, where we have art pieces, games, interactive experiences, all these kind of like artistic content within this whole like culture of regeneration, the culture itself can become a selling point to attract more and more like-minded people to come join the ship and then work on things together. So these topics, we've summarized them into all these things, from eco-villages to mindful practices to like even decentralized community governance to positive sum games. There's all these like really interesting, beautiful knowledge that's emerging. Some are new, some are newer concepts, some are more ancient concepts, but bringing them together is really the goal of creating and curating this culture of like regenerative living. And throughout, so the creation of this creative community is not just gonna be about the product themselves, like the projects themselves. The project's gonna be important. They're gonna be work done by me alongside with many amazing partners. But at the same time, the creation of this project also really needs to be curated. So that's where the DAO governance comes in, where we really want to design the governance early on to a point that to make sure that this it's like designing the blueprint for your organization before you actually launch it, right? So like this part, I think it's super important, and I really think it's also like a piece of art to design a really good, steady governance. I've been with a lot of different DAOs, and I've observed what are some of the things that DAOs are doing good, and what are some of the things that DAOs have room to improve. And I really think that the DAO space is still super early on. It's still basically in its infancy. And what we're seeing right now, it's really order emerging from chaos. We see all these DAOs trying these different beautiful experiences, and some of them might do better, some of them might do less good, but in the end, what we're gonna see is that like DAOs are gonna start to slowly figure out its formula on how to progress and evolve, and that's why I'm really excited to bring Agartha to the DAO space and kind of like honing to the concept of a decentralized governance, basically like seeing this as a digital co-op where all the creators and all the residents, everyone that contribute, will get very clear amount of distribution, and then eventually we can even set a limit on like, this is something that I've recently learned about the difference between co-op and traditional businesses, where co-ops usually have a limit on what's the highest paid amount in this co-op and what's the lowest paid amount. So that limit is usually not more than like 10 times, right? So if you're an intern compared to when you're the CEO of the company, like you get paid maximum like 10 times more than the intern, which is already more than enough. But in a lot of traditional companies, I guess traditional LLCs, there is no such limit. So you get people on the highest ladder paying themselves like 300 times more than people on the lower tier company, lower tier employee, who usually like dedicate the most amount of hours and energy, and that's where exploitation happens, where people usually at the lower end of the corporate ladder wouldn't be able to climb up. And these are some of the issues that co-ops have been addressing for a long time, and this is something that I see the DAO space really have the potential to advocate this kind of philosophy, because all DAOs are supposed to be living on chain and all the transactions are supposed to be living on chain. So really, creators get to create in public, but DAO governance also get to be observed completely in public, so you can actually see like how much of the funds is going to what project and how much of the benefits is going to who. So eventually our goal is to create a DAO where things are very transparent and clear cut. It's not like the early people or the top tier managers getting like the most of the cut, and then the bottom people or maybe like the freelancers gets exploited. So we really want to make sure that the rates is fair. That's like number one most important thing for the Agartha DAO. And another really important thing is that the DAO needs to stay mission aligned to our initial idea and mission. Like we launched this DAO to create like a creative culture for regenerative living, and that's why in our operating agreement, which will be kind of a legal document that defines how the DAO is operating. In this operating agreement, we're going to say very clearly like what are some things that we will support, what are some of the things we don't support. Like if you want to publish a book about teen, then maybe that's not super aligned with what Agartha wants to do, and then therefore the voting result might not be directly affecting how funds are allocated. So these are the things that we need to think about before actually officially launching this into an actual project entity. And so over here I'm using a two-tier system to integrate with community voting. So community voting is gonna affect how like which project and which aspect of the project we want to use based on like where your community is, your audience, your participant, and then we collectively let them make decisions instead of having like one single point of failure making all the decisions. But with the implementation of community voting, it really kind of has to exist within a guardrail, within like a certain framework of what we want to create. Otherwise, like things might just get voted all over the place, right? Like, what if someone is really good at making like a very extravagant proposal and then get all the community to vote on it, but in the end, the result might not be close to what the original mission. So this is where tier 1 projects and tier 2 projects come in play, where in Agartha there are absolute priority projects that we want to make sure that we get them done. These projects including like these games the virtual games of eco village simulators, and also the actual physical village, which is like the crown jewel, like the final goal of what we want to achieve. And these are what I would consider tier one projects, where where they will for sure need to be done, and then an X amount of budget would 100% be allocated to these projects. So in a way, it's operating like a like traditional LLC in a way, where like things needs to be done, and then there can be clear project managers that work on these and make sure that they work, make sure we hit our targets. But then like the DAO gets to decide like where, like in details, like what kind of options do we want in terms of accomplishing this target. So let's say for a game, the DAO maybe can decide what's the format of the game, what's the art style, what's the platform, these kind of things, so that we will adapt the design philosophy according to what the community wants. And the tier two projects are more like projects that will assist the ecosystem, but they're not absolutely necessary. And they will also have a portion of the funds and resources being allocated, but just have to be super clear that tier one project is priority and tier two projects are here to support. Doesn't mean that they shouldn't exist, but time-wise, if there's limited time and resources, we will need to make sure that tier one projects get finished first. Otherwise, we might get into a situation where a lot of DAOs are facing right now, where there's all these projects and everyone wants their project to succeed, and there's just really hard for DAOs to differentiate which one to prioritize first. And because voting in general, like, and it still like has a lot of room to be finalized and to be more concretified. And so in this sense, tier two projects might include, like make a documentary about eco-villages or publish a book about like solar punk lifestyles. These are gonna be really cool projects, and it's definitely within the mission, but they are like, we can't really like eat the whole world all at once. We can't really just like do all these things. We might not have enough resources, and we might not have enough people working on them. So like, if we do have enough, we can like support as many tier two projects as possible. But but before we get to that, we need to make sure like the major, like our core mission is finished. So this is kind of how the DAO governance is distributed, and this is like the difference between kind of this whole ecosystem of current projects that we support. So the game is an open source strategic management game on eco-village building with educational simulations and research-based data. So this game is what I've been working on for the Forefront residency. I finally finished the little demo, as you've seen some of the progress of the live creation of this game. But the eventual goal for this game is for it to be continue polished and also remodeled at the time of needs. But basically, we want to provide a game for eco-village building simulator where it can have these realistic research-based data, such as plant nutrition input and output, like what do plants need, what do plants give, energy consumption graph. So like, imagine if you're building solar power, how much can you get from how big of a solar, from which generation, what age, and how much does it cost on the market? How much power could you get? How much battery do you match with the solar power? And how much battery can you store? And how much sun do you get based on the location you're at? And how much appliances do you actually need to regulate basic needs? And then how do this whole flow of energy works? So like these calculations, we can turn them into like, maybe like a separate mini game within this greater ecosystem of the mega game, where we can separate them into little interactions and then gamify them and make sure that they're educational and fun, and also really useful for people that actually wants to build off-grid villages. And that's the part about the game. And the other big important aspect is the village, which is a physical regenerative village to prototype a permaculture ecosystem with solar punk technologies, playtest virtual eco building principles, and basically everything that this game, if you think about the game as the blueprint, as like where you draw all the principles and kind of estimate and do simulations in a virtual place, you can bring all these learnings into the physical village, where we can say, hey, this is like the simulation that we built into like solar calculation. Let's implement them onto the actual village and see if it works. So the actual village would will be like providing feedback for the studies that's done by the game, and the game will be providing like strategies for actually building out the village. So in a way, the game and the village have a very hopefully will have a very good symbiosis relationship where they help each other and support each other. And inside this village, we can have a lot of really fun activities such as eco-building workshops. So the building of the village and learning how to build a village, that itself could be a learning experience for people that are interested. There's all these workshops on building dome, building with eco material. We can even exercise with 3D printed buildings, which there's a lot of cool companies are doing, like using recycled plastic and then to do 3D printing on these beautiful domes. And in the village, we can also exercise on permaculture principles, actually study how do we grow an ecosystem instead of isolate different plants and singulate out plants. And it can have all these different environmental studies workshop. It can be a sustainability innovation lab where people with like really innovative ideas on sustainability can come here and just like live here and work on the projects that you love. Same goes for artist residency, like talented artists and can just also have an opportunity to come here, work on beautiful piece of art or in or like in any media that you want. And then in the end, the village could have places for eco resort rentals, which will generate cash flow for the village, and we can have our all-time favorite gathering and camping festivals and things like that. So the village is probably like just the end goal of what we want to achieve. But before we get there, we really need to learn a lot more on how to build these things, how do things work, how do we really build in adherence to eco principle, and taking all the carbon emission and other externalities into account. Like as we're building things, how much emissions are we taking? Maybe we can offset those emissions by X amount of trees we want to plant and things like that. But anyways, the game and the village are like kind of the major tier 1 projects inside this ecosystem. But as we create the game and the village, we're also gonna build a mission aligned community DAO members to participate in all these eco-driven initiatives. So as similar with all other DAOs, all other DAOs, community is going to be at the center of this project, where we're going to provide enough resources and share our progress and our creative progress with our community, in the form of live streaming, in the form of like AMAs and sessions, and basically keep our community updated on our progress and where we're going to be. And also, as we're creating the community, create a culture of regenerative living through art and technology. And this is a very rough roadmap of where we want to be. I'm gonna skip the details, but basically, the first tier, maybe like the first year or so, is going to be focused on this game. And instead of one game, we might just separate them into a bunch of mini games, where each mini game accomplishes one simple, very simple task. Like we can have a solar power calculation game, an urban planting permaculture simulation game, or maybe like a microbiome, like environmental studies game, or a macrobiome, like climate studies game. And then like none of these games will be as complex as actual reality, but they can just be a really fun little simulation and very educational on how reality works, and educating content through fun gamified experiences would be the goal. And so these will be the first parts of creating this project, and then the second part will be like actually building the village. So like through actually building village, we want to do a certain amount of research, like looking at which land to build, what's the climate, and then building up the blueprint, combining the learnings we have from the games, putting them into like an actual planning map, purchase the land, actually build it, figure out a way to crowdfund enough to purchase the land, or possibly partner with existing eco-villages to implement these ideas and concepts, and then operate it as like a long-term village. So that's the basically roadmap for the next few years and few months and few years. And here's some of the progress that we've done so far. And this is prior to the Forefront residency, where we started off by researching existing eco-villages, and we also started accumulating media content for eco-villages, generating eco-villages and writing articles about eco-villages, and writing like these philosophies about solar punk living. What really is it? And all of these information you can find at agartha.one, which is our website. And we also started actually building a small community online of a Discord server where people will be sharing. Like there's one person that's trying to turn their car engine to be running on completely on water, which I really don't know how that's going to turn out, but we have community members doing these kind of projects, and we really do look forward to connect more and more community members that are very into the idea of eco-living and eco-building. And this is like what I've been working on for the Forefront residency. So this whole concept is a concept art for the Agartha Eco Village simulation game. And these are some of the in-game screenshots, which y'all probably have seen as during some of my earlier live streams. So we have built a walk around, and then we are able to plant these plants, and each plant we are able to read and then like learn what they are. So this is a very, very rough prototype, as it's done for under a few weeks, but still it just kind of is there to convey a concept of what the actual game actually wants to be. And these are some of the design principles that we've been working on to build this eco village, to really like draft out all the flow charts of like eco-village principles, of eco-village building, eco-living principles. And not gonna dive super deep in it because I don't even know how to summarize these concepts into solid words. It's still pretty much an exploration process, but eventually we do want to continue diving into these concepts and then enrich them and make them more and more solid. And this is my most exciting part to share. So we've been accumulating some partners in the past few weeks and months. So I really want to spend some time introducing our exciting partners to us, to you guys. So first partner is Thix Lab. Thix Lab made the first virtual chemistry lab on the App Store and is known for creating virtual simulations of physical reality. We will partner with Thix to create realistic educational games and UI UX principles. So with here, I'm gonna just stop sharing and then share a different screen to show you some web content. Let me see, Chrome tab. Wait, actually window, yes. So this is what Thix Lab has been working on. I actually learned all probably like my most advanced knowledge in terms of game development through working with the founder of Thix. And Thix have this beautiful principle where they do these very realistic simulations on physical reality. So they worked on things like Chemist, which is a first of its kind virtual chemistry lab for mobile devices. And it's a mobile game that allows you to actually do any chemistry experiment that you want. So you can like put in any of these elements, you can heat them, and you can like do realistic, you can like even burn them, and then it will output chemistry formula for you with these very beautiful, beautiful like intuitive designs also. So, and then Thix has also recently worked on this app called Life, and it's a living body simulator that allows you to experiment with medications, procedures, and physical activities. So it simulates the actual human body, and then you can inject random things and cut random parts of your, and do surgeries to your organs, and then observe how your body respond to these things. So like Thix has been working on some really incredible and inspiring projects, and I've recently got reconnected with the founder of this creative lab and basically told them about the idea of building permaculture communities and permaculture principles, and they're very happy to be kind of jumping on board with projects together, and then we are going to start to brainstorm together into like the engineering principles and design principles for some of the Agartha games, hopefully collaborate with Thix to launch these mini games together on the idea of using scientific knowledge and approach to understand our world in a more holistic manner. And so this is something that I'm super excited about. And Also excited to be able to actually learn from kind of the best talents out there and also co-create something really great. And going back to our next partner, which is City DAO. So I've actually worked at City DAO for a few months before leaving and fully dedicating my time to the Agartha project and the Forefront residency. And just gonna pull up the City DAO website real quick. So CityDAO is the first DAO to collectively govern physical assets and strives to build future sustainable cities and as network states. So I've talked to some people at CityDAO who is working on a proposal for one of the future parcels the CityDAO will collectively purchase and own, and we call it the big parcel. And basically, Agartha would partner with the big parcel of CityDAO and provide regenerative living principles and concepts to implement the regenerative living concepts and principles into the parts of city that wants to build, and like making sure that there are considerations being put into like regenerative design principles into the future of like possibly a blockchain operated crypto city. So that's something that I've been super excited about these two partners, and having these very amazing, talented people on board makes me feel like there's more and more momentum about this project, and there's more and more momentum of people joining. And then with more people joining, we'll be able to reach more and more audience. So very excited about this whole journey. It's been quite a long time for us to get to the place that we want to get, but I definitely aim to continue being on the grind after the residency and working on this project as much as I can. And with that being said, these are the kind of general intro of the Agartha project. And now we're going to dive into what have we accomplished in the last 4 weeks in terms of the technical demo. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. Oh, actually, sorry. I wasn't gonna share my screen. I was gonna open this project, which is gonna take a hot second because my computer is very slow. But just give me a second. Share. Okay. Project is opening. Maybe just gonna wait for it to fully open. Okay, we've opened the project. So as we go through this project, I'm gonna also talk about like kind of do a bit of a summary of the creative journey of creating this project. So as you see right now in Unity, which is the game engine that I've been using, this is like the final scene of the village that we've built up. But this is kind of not where I got started. I really got started with an image of a kind of a concept image of what the village would look like, and then kind of delving into more on the artistic side of creating a village. So I got started by creating actually a render of what the village looked like. And this is what a render looks like. So it really is just a render, and it's not. This image is not to be anything like functional or anything, but it's just kind of like the as you would you can consider it as the album cover art of this virtual village. And then this is kind of like the general vibe that we want to convey, where like we don't really just want to build an eco village, and then like we don't really like eco-friendly is super important, but it's not the only concept that we're trying to convey. We want to build an eco village that's also like really pretty, or like as pretty as we can make it, and to make it really attractive for people to want to live there, because eco-villages have existed for centuries, right? And there's a lot of reasons that people leave the eco-villages and go to urban places, because they want to be immersed in culture, they want to be immersed in innovation, they want to be immersed in like exciting new things, and then like beautiful art. So a huge part of like us rethinking about our mission for the Agartha project is really like how do we bring beautiful culture and art into the world of eco village. So this kind of a attempt of the concept art, and it has inspiration from like ancient Chinese and Japanese Korean architecture, kind of merging all of these into one. And the whole eco village wouldn't stay like it's beyond just like ancient Asian temple culture or architecture style. We want to be able to like kind of build as many diverse and also traditional and modern cultural style of architecture as possible. So this is just one, like you would think about it as one prototype, as like the eco village prototype, but you can call this like the Asian styled eco village prototype. But in the future, we can have like an Islamic styled eco village, maybe like a Russian styled kind of like those like really candy looking castle like looking eco village. We can have like a European Gothic style eco village, but basically throughout exploring our ancestors and throughout exploring our history and combining these ideas and bringing them into like the world of eco living, and then just creating something really inspiring to be around, and also something that possibly adhere to like eco living principle. So this is kind of the render of the like the cover picture of the eco village, and that is one scene. And another scene is the actual more functional scene where this is where we get to actually walk around and explore and look at things. So I finally finished this interaction like an hour ago before the stream. And now you can land at these places and you get to walk around and look at things. That's our water catcher. So with our water catcher, we are able to gather our water. And this is our solar panel. With this, we were able to generate enough energy. And you can turn on this camera icon, which will allow you to look at things. And for things that have certain principles or qualities, it will show up. So over here, I have some hidden soil that's functional. So you can look at this patch of soil and it'll tell you how much NPK there is in each soil. So imagine if in the future, for actual building eco villages, you can have like AR glasses with like data, and you can have sensors being planted at different soil to let you know exactly how much NPK you need for each soil. So that will be fun, wouldn't it? And then we can click on the planting button, and that will actually allow us to choose from any of these 4 pre-made plants and actually plant into the thing, and then choose the mushroom and actually plant some oyster mushroom. Even though this, I have to do a disclaimer, planting mushroom under the sun is actually against permaculture principle, which we'll see why, because they really need shades. And then planting some lettuce. But for the sake of demo, because I really don't have all the time to actually make things to be as in depth as possible, and we just really want to make like a fun little mini game, but also like to explain the principles that we've been talking about. And okay, now we planted a bunch of things. We can go back to the camera, and then now you can actually look at things, and it tells you, this is corn, this is how much water it needs, this is the temperature it can handle, and this is how much sun it needs, and this is the kind of soil. And right now, all this data is just like kind of default, but eventually in the actual game, each corn will have its like current status data. Like this corn currently is needing this much energy, or this corn is currently like growing at this kind of, or this corn is actually dying right now. Maybe it needs more attendance to water. And then you can make that into a strategic management game where every morning you wake up and you're like, who's dying? Let me help you like die less, or let me help you survive. And then that can have a really fun mechanism into it. Then you can look at the oyster mushroom, and it actually needs indirect sun. So like planting here, your mushroom is probably gonna die very soon. And you can look at your carrots and your lettuce and everything. And so yeah, this is pretty much the demo we have. And it's very simple, it's nothing fancy, but I'm still looking back at everything that was accomplished in 4 weeks. I'm still very happy about the things that we've accomplished, even though throughout a lot of times, there's definitely times where I like nothing is getting done and everything is awful, and I've overpromised so much and I couldn't get any of it built. But looking at what we've accomplished so far, I really think that it is something that's worth celebrating. So I'm very happy for all this progress we made, and very happy that For Fun family has been super supportive and also pushing me and other to create in the best way we can. So I think I demonstrated everything I wanted to demonstrate. I know we still have a bit of time. Gonna read some of the comment. It would be cool to find various historical styles of different cultures with different modern styles that are also really beautiful. Yeah, 100%. That's the goal of the village. We definitely want to keep creating. And oh, just remembered, I did say that I want to launch this project on Juicebox before this live stream, and I wasn't sure if I would have enough time to launch it on Juicebox during a live session because there's a lot of preparation. But I did put the project on Juicebox before this live stream, so now we can go to the Agartha.1 website, which is video to load. So this is the current Agartha website. It's been like this for a while, and the background video, which is not playing. Play. Okay, we have a really fun background video. Sometimes it doesn't play. Maybe the internet is not doing super well, and now it plays. So background this video is created with an AI algorithm called Stable Diffusion by a really close friends and family member of the Agartha community, and right now this website is still very much a placeholder. We're going to update our website very soon and with the same styles of our pitch deck. And if you go to the wiki, I've did a huge update on our Notion, and basically right now that you need to access the Agartha project is here. If you go to the click me page, you will get to see the Agartha slides with everything that I was talking about earlier. Basically can be found over here. And what I wanted to show you, and then you can go to our blog to read the articles we publish. You can go to the Discord to say hi to our community, follow us on Twitter. We have gloriously accumulated 30 followers with $0 in marketing. Shout out to us, but we do hope to continue to grow and maybe publish more and more content. And just now I've put the Agartha project on Juicebox. So this has been on Juicebox for like about an hour now. And Juicebox is this awesome crowdfunding platform. Fun projects and small projects to get attention from like accumulating different funds. So as we just put it there, I've never really put any of my work on crowdfunding platform, so I'm really nervous at how it might turn out. But basically I've written like a bit of a summary, a little bit of a summary on like what the project is, what's our ethos, how do we want to govern, who are our partners, who is the creator. So if you're interested, feel free to go here and dive into the thing. And Juicebox has all of these amazing configurations set. It even allows you to create a ERC20 token as governance token with like zero programming preparation. All you have to do is just to click that button when you launch the token on Juicebox and pay a minting price. So I think the platform is good and it's really well configured. And there's actually a lot of really cool projects that have launched on Juicebox. So Constitution DAO, it's like one of the most famous DAO that accumulated $48 million in 2 weeks, that launched on Juicebox aiming to buy the Constitution. Recently, there's also a few newer projects launched on Juicebox. One of them is MoonDAO, DAO that's aiming to send an actual person to space. And so it has all these like really funky, fun projects on Juicebox. And then I've recently got connected with their community. Their community have been super wonderful and helpful for project creators, and really helping me like navigating through some of the into like launching token, launching projects. So if you have ideas and that you want to launch, definitely encouraging you launch this on the Juicebox platform as well. And I have no promise how well this is gonna go, but I'm really excited that this is launched. And if you want to find out more details, you can find it on the Agartha Notion, which is connected to our website. And with that being said, I'm gonna turn off my video. I think that's all I wanted to go over today. So maybe we can end today's session a little bit earlier. And just want to give a final shout out to the Forefront family and shout out to the Forefront team for supporting us throughout this creative process and being very professional at the way you work and being very adaptive as like to our changing concepts and schedules. And thank you for all the promotional opportunities for this project. And I definitely really appreciate to have this opportunity to create what I really love to create, and definitely want to continue making this into more and more of a reality. So thank you very much. And with